I could not believe the extent of discrimination that exists within our prison system.
Senator Kim Pate never intended to be an advocate for incarcerated peoples. But when statistics show, for example, nearly half of all maximum security prisoners are Indigenous women, she calls it a blatant human rights violation.
They are on their face discriminatory, and basically what that means is you don't have to identify individual acts of discrimination. You just have to look at the whole picture. And if the whole picture is so misrepresentative of who the general population is, then clearly there's discrimination.
The Secretary General of Amnesty International, Alex Neve, agrees about the problem.
The rate at which incarceration of Indigenous offenders as opposed to non-Indigenous offenders has increased is the difference between the two is exponential and completely unacceptable.
Neve admits Amnesty should do more, but it's an issue that is more difficult to engage the public with.
I think the public has less empathy because they feel that the people who are behind bars somehow deserve to be there, and therefore we shouldn't be too concerned if things are a little bit harsher or a little bit more difficult than they might like.
Liberal MP Pam Demoff is one parliamentarian who is looking at the issue. She co-chairs the Committee of the Status of Women. That committee is about to study Indigenous women in the justice system. Demoff is also on the Committee of Public Safety, which just began looking at Indigenous prisoners' access to early release last week.
The timing is actually coincidence, but it is an issue that our government is interested in learning more about in our committees. I happen to be on both committees, and so have been able to bring forward studies on this issue.
Demoff believes witness testimony will move the issue forward.
And then we'll be able to take all of their testimony and create recommendations to give to the government to try and influence policy at the government level.
However, Senator Pate says policy has been on the books since 1992 in provisions of the Corrections and Conditional Release Act. Those provisions are being re-examined by a Senate committee.
And part of the reason is they have never been implemented fully. These provisions were put in place specifically to reduce the number of Indigenous prisoners.
Senator Pate says the issue needs to be taken seriously.
Imprisonment as the final indicator of the failure of every other system to meet the needs of Indigenous peoples.
Tomorrow, Correctional investigator Ivan Zinger will appear before the Committee on Public Safety. Meanwhile, the Committee on the Status of Women is looking for written briefs in its study of Indigenous women in the justice and correctional systems. The deadline for that is January 26. Todd, Lamirande, APTN National News, Ottawa.